Good evening and a very warm welcome to the hour's news package with radio and television Tonga news for tonight. Making headlines, Tongan community in Fiji welcomed Prime Minister Ho'okawamei Liku to Tonga last night. Price for one loaf of bread expected to increase to pa'anga and 30 seniti next week. And more than 200 people admitted to Viola Hospital a day infected from the Influenza A flu. We'll have these and more stories later on in the bulletin. Now I'm Vafanoto Paula with the stories in detail. The Honourable Prime Minister Ho'okawamei Liku is currently in Fiji for the Pacific Islands Forum meeting. However, he had an opportunity to visit the Tongan students in Fiji last night at the Tonga campus. During this visit, the Prime Minister listened and discussed the challenges that these students are facing during their time in the country. Mark Ake with more on that story.
Prime Minister Honourable Ho'okawamei Liku was joined by Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs Fikita Moiloa Otoikamanu, Honourable Health Minister Dr. Sayapi Ukala, and the Secretary to Cabinet Etika Koka at the Tonga campus last night. Speaking to radio and television Tonga News, Tonga Secretary Sinagami said this was a good time for the students to relay their needs and challenges they are facing in terms of how they are living in the country to the Prime Minister and his delegation. Kami said during the visit, one of the issues raised by private students was not having job opportunities when they returned to Tonga, unlike scholarship students. There were also other issues raised by students last night. However, Ho'okawamei Liku assured them that he would work on these concerns. Meanwhile, the students thanked the Prime Minister and the government for all their help since COVID-19 reached Fiji. Gifts were presented by the students to the Prime Minister, Foreign Affairs Minister, and Health Minister to show their gratitude for taking time to visit them. There was approximately more than 300 Tongan students in Fiji.
The price of certain food and goods are increasing quickly due to the rise of petroleum, and our one loaf of bread is expected to increase from 2 pa'anga to 2 pa'anga and 30 seniti starting next Monday. Mark Ake again tells you more.
The chairman of the Tonga Bakery Association, Kennedy Benitani, told radio and television Tonga News that the increase of bread is due to the increase in ingredients of bread as well as the increase of petroleum and electricity. Wheat flour is imported from Australia, and the price of bread in Australia is 2 pa'anga and 50 seniti, but compared to the Tongan currency estimate, it is 5 pa'anga. Also, the cost of freight for importing the ingredients of bread from overseas has increased by 115%, while petroleum and electricity prices continue to soar. Benitani said that prices for flour-made products will also increase. Prices for all pastries is also increasing, but we only focus on bread because that's the only product we sell to all local stores every day. However, pastries that will increase in price include meat pies, buns, hot dog buns, hamburger buns, sweet loaf, cakes, and others. The new price for one loaf of bread in wholesale prices will increase from 1 pa'anga 50 seniti to 2 pa'anga, and retail prices will increase from 2 pa'anga to 2 pa'anga and 30 seniti. Outer islands will have their own prices, including Mava'u, where bread will increase to 3 pa'anga. Benitani urges the public to submit a complaint to the Consumer Division of the Ministry of Trade and Economic Development if any shops increase the price of bread. Tonga is currently experiencing a shortage of flour due to rescheduling of shipments from Fiji, but Benitani says shipments will arrive in Tonga next week.
The latest from the Pacific Islands Forum meeting in Suva, Fiji, the Solomon Islands Prime Minister Manasseh Sogavare has clarified to the Pacific Islands Forum in Suva on its relation with China regarding rumors circulating social media and the Pacific Islands at the beginning of the year. He says his country will not do anything that will put any member of the Pacific Islands Forum at risk. The Honourable Prime Minister of the Solomon Islands, Manasseh Sogavare, said the Solomon Islands are a permanent part of the Pacific family, and the 51st Forum Leaders Retreat in Suva today will provide him the opportunity to further assure regional leaders of the genuine relations with China. He said the Solomon Islands will not allow any foreign military base or institutions to be built in the country. Sogavare said having a foreign military presence is not in the interest of Honiara or any other country in the region. Meanwhile, the forum is expected to conclude with the launching of the 2050 strategy for the Blue Pacific continent, which has been developed over 3 years after wide consultation across the region. The president of this year's meeting, Frank Bainimarama, says the launching of the 2050 strategy for the Blue Pacific continent will be endorsed by the leaders today and would provide the opportunity to determine our collective position as a region in the face of increasing geopolitical competitions. Bainimarama added that he looks forward to the commitment of all leaders in championing the collective regional interest of the 2050 strategy of the Blue Pacific continent. However, on the sideline of the meeting in Suva, Prime Minister Ho'okavamei Liku met with Fiji's Prime Minister Bainimarama at the diplomatic relation meeting yesterday on Fiji's relation with Tonga through our shared history. Bainimarama congratulated his Tongan counterpart on being elected as the 18th Prime Minister of Tonga, with assurances of his continued support. The Prime Minister also expressed his condolences to the government and the people of Tonga for the devastation caused by the eruption of the underwater volcano earlier this year, to which he assured Fiji's continued support towards Tonga's recovery efforts. In his response, Honourable Ho'okavamei Liku expressed his sincere gratitude for Fiji's continued support and assistance to Tonga during recovery efforts from the effects of the COVID-19 and tsunami crisis. He thanked Prime Minister Bainimarama for his strong leadership on issues and importance to the region, particularly on climate and oceans. Prime Minister Ho'okavamei Liku said he is pleased to be in Fiji and is grateful for the kind hospitality accorded to him and his delegation. The medical superintendent of the Ministry of Health, Dr. Ana Akauola, told Radio and Television Tonga News this morning that more than 200 people are admitted to Viola Hospital for the influenza A flu every day. We'll have Alice Tupo with more on that story.
Dr. Ana Akauola says that this virus usually spreads through the respiratory system. Symptoms include coughing, fever, body aches, shortness of breath and headaches. She adds that these symptoms still appeared from those that are being admitted to hospital for a doctor's appointment. The infectious of this flu will have it for 4 or 5 days, and some people have it for 1 week, but they still feel the symptoms. Some people just need to come over to the hospital so that the doctor can examine their chest if they have the flu or not, because they are scared of getting pneumonia. It is understood that the outpatient ward operations hasn't back to normal because Ministry of Health believes that there will be a second wave of COVID-19 and it will be worsened. So due to the lack of staffs, the ministry is managing their staffs in every shift so they can take care of the patients well.
Usually one is called monkeypox.
This virus is exactly as monkeypox, so it can be treated and well, but children and elderly are the most vulnerable to this flu because their immune system is weak and they can't fight it. Ministry of Health believe that this is the influenza A as it is still spreading in New Zealand. The advice for the public is to take a Panadol, drink lots of water, take a rest, also eat a lot of vitamin foods and healthy diet because it will help fight against this flu. The Ministry of Health hopes that people can use a doctor's appointments through telephone because there are many appointments to the doctors face-to-face, but people can still use the 2 numbers of seeing a doctor, which is 08015 and 08016. Dr. Akauola emphasized that this is the only way they can minimize the numbers of getting a face-to-face appointment with the doctors. Dr. Malitino Mafi will always be on the telephone line to give advice on what to do in order to fight this flu. Reporting for Radio and Television Tonga News, I'm Alice Tupo.
Now, the latest COVID cases in Ewa, the Ministry of Health has recorded 25 people with COVID-19. This was confirmed from the Health Director yesterday, Dr. Siale Akauola.
Dr. Siale Akaola says the ministry were trying their best to get people tested for COVID-19 after arriving at Ewa, but there were passengers the ministry was not aware of them to get tested. He adds that there were likely some people in Tongatapu gone for fishing and travelled to the island. Following this, Dr. Akaola says 6 of these 25 people with COVID-19 have recovered and 19 people with active cases. Despite this, they are all in good condition. Dr. Akaola reminds the people that even the number of COVID-19 is now decreasing, people should be more cautious as no one knows the change of the variants of COVID-19. He urges cooperation with the people on the island and that they should comply with the restrictions imposed. Meanwhile, ministries are still urging those who haven't completed their booster to complete, as we are about to have our double booster shot. Reporting for Radio and Television Tonga News, I'm Alice Dubo.
And Tongan soldiers gaining experience through Rimpec 2022. Tongan soldiers of His Majesty's Armed Forces are participating in the world's largest international maritime exercise, the Pioneer Rim of the Pacific, or Rimpec 2022. Tonga joined 26 countries in this program, which started on the 29th of June. Alice Dubo takes up that story.
Tonga joined 26 countries in this program, which started on the 29th of June. 45 Tongan soldiers, led by Commander Lieutenant Colonel Takau, are part of this maritime exercise. The team is training in gunnery, familiarizing themselves with foreign weapons and aircraft through onload and offload training. There are also capabilities ranging from disaster relief and maritime security operations to sea control and complex warfighting. The relevant realistic training program include amphibious operations, missile, anti-submarine and air defense exercises, as well as counter-piracy operations, mine clearance operations, explosive ordnance disposal, diving and salvage operations. The aim of this maritime exercise is to extend knowledge of soldiers. It also provides opportunities designed to foster and sustain cooperative relationships that are critical to ensuring the safety of sea lanes and security on the world's interconnected oceans. The participation of forces from 26 nations includes United States, Australia, the United Kingdom, Germany, the Netherlands, Canada, France, India, Chile, Ecuador, Indonesia, Denmark, Tonga, Israel, Colombia, Japan, Brunei, Malaysia, Mexico, the Republic of Korea, Singapore, New Zealand, Peru, the Republic of the Philippines, Sri Lanka, and Thailand. The exercise is conducted in and around the Hawaiian Islands and Southern California and will be complete on the 4th of August. Reporting for Radio and Television Tonga News, I'm Alice Tupo.
That wraps up this evening's news package, but before we part, here's one final look at today's top stories. Tongan community in Fiji welcomed Prime Minister Ho'akavame Liku to Tonga last night. Price for one loaf of bread expected to increase to 2 pa'anga and 30 seniti next week. And more than 200 people admitted to Waiala Hospital a day infected from the Influenza A flu. And that's it for tonight. Thank you for your company. I'm Paula. Good evening.